Hey, welcome to Wise Guys on this Monday night before the NCAA tournament. This is one of our biggest shows of the night with some of our biggest stars of the night ahead of one of the greatest times of the year. Dave McCann, Blaine Fowler, welcome to the Wise Guys. We're the #1 BYU Sports live stream in the world. That's saying a lot, but we can say it, right?
Yeah,
we say a lot of things on this show. We say that.
Yeah, and we already have folks in the chat with us. Jonathan Ashcraft, first on the chat from Henderson, Nevada. Welcome in, Jonathan. And Ruthie5358 saying excited for basketball. We're going to talk some basketball tonight. And, hey, make sure you follow us on YouTube. We remind you of this every week, but we'll put the link in the chat. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. We're also live on Facebook, Twitch. And the core of where you find everything that we've got going is ysguys.com. So wiseguys.com.
That's where all our interviews are that we've done in the past. There's hundreds of them, including Ty Detmer, Steve Young, Danny Ainge, Wally Joyner, Marie Osmond, Glenn Kozlowski, Jimmer Fredette, Kyle Van Noy, Sherry Dew, and a whole bunch of others. ysguys.com. It's all sitting right there for you. And our podcast, of course, which comes up on Tuesdays, available wherever you get your podcasts, and then you can listen to that anytime throughout the week.
You know who's going to be in that archive, like not for the first time, but again, in the house tonight for an NCAA tournament preview. We're actually have Greg Wrubell, the voice of the Cougars.
This is our second. We've shot our budget.
I was going to say for as long as I can remember, but Greg knows I predate, like because I've been here forever. But he feels like for as long as I can remember. And of course, our good friend, Greg's great friend, and my great friend Paul James, who we love and we're great friends with for years and years. And Greg took over for Paul and has been an institution here at BYU. He's in the house. And then we're going to get his broadcast partner for college basketball in Mark Durant, who's also been on the show before.
Yeah, we're gonna have a round
and we're gonna talk about this NCAA tournament thing. So how fun is that? That's awesome.
That's coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We'll give our final four picks. We'll also visit with Craig Cusick. He's going to be here in just a little while, the Royal Blue Collective, and he's playing the big dance.
Yeah, so he's not only Royal Blue Collective and can talk to us about NIL and all that stuff, but he can talk about what it's like to play in an NCAA tournament game. So
and there's football to talk about Friday, the alumni game live on BYU TV. We'll talk about that. We had Max Hall on last week, which was a lot of fun, and the new college football playoff TV deal, which could be expanded to 14 teams. That's how we're going to start tonight as we get everyone a chance to settle in before we bring Greg and Mark on. Let's talk about this new 6-year college football playoff contract, which is going to start in 2026.
Right, so 14 teams. Remember, it's going to be 12 this season and next season.
Right.
I'm thrilled that it's going to 12. I hope that this 14 is a pathway to 16.
Really? You want 16?
I want 16. I've said 16 from the very, very beginning because I think that's a fun format. Think about this. The NCAA basketball tournament that we're just about to embark on starting tomorrow, it just feels like the whole country is in on this, and they just can't wait to fill out their brackets, do all that. That's what's been missing from college football is the ability to do that at the end of the year. It will be bigger than the NCAA basketball tournament once it's up and running, and I think it's awesome for college football.
Starting in 2026, the 14 teams, 12 for sure, and then everyone says it's going to go to 14. The 5 highest-ranked conference champions from the Big 12, which BYU is a member, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 10, and the highest-ranked group of 5 champion would earn playoff berths. The next 9 highest-ranked teams. Why does the SEC like that? Because they think they'll have half their league.
Yeah, exactly. That's
and the
exactly
Big 10 too.
What they think.
TV rights going to go to ESPN as expected, and the Big 12 schools are going to get roughly $12 million annually from the CPF's financial distribution. SEC and Big 10, they're going to get 21. They're going to get more than the others, but the others have to be okay with it because those guys hold the leverage.
Right, and because they will probably, if you just take a look historically, they're going to have more than their fair share of teams in that. So that feels right to me. So at least for now, it feels right. And if the Big 12 wins a couple of these, then maybe they can go back and renegotiate, right?
The group of 5 teams, they get 1.8 million.
Yeah, hey, so that's not bad. At least they're in it.
They get something, but 1.8 while Big 10 teams are getting 21 million. That's never going to add up.
And the Big 12 makes more money than everybody else in the NCAA basketball tournament with their shares, right? Because they're the best basketball conference and have been. So the best conference deserves the most of the share. The SEC's been the best.
Yep. And the Big Ten right behind them.
Yep.
With Michigan and Ohio State. Now, half of the teams in the leagues wouldn't qualify.
Right.
But the big teams in there do.
The top 6 or 7 teams in those leagues are really, really good.
We've got football Friday night, 6 o'clock on BYU TV, the alumni game. The Royal quarterback, Brandon Doman, leading the Navy quarterback, Max Hall. And, of course, they all got backups. It's at the old Provo High School football field, which is now owned by BYU. And BYU TV cameras will be all over it, and it'll feel like football on Friday night.
We talked to Max last week, and he talked about, I'm bringing my playbook. And so Jackson Brown's going to be a backup quarterback in this. I saw Jackson.
I hope he's going to sing, too.
I saw him on Saturday. Yeah, it's not that Jackson Brown. but I saw him on Saturday, and he looks great. He looks in shape. And I said, hey, Max told me he's bringing his playbook. He goes, yeah, that's okay. We've been practicing. I go, you've been practicing? He goes, yeah, we had a couple practices. We got a chat. We got together. We're ready to go. So we'll see.
Hey, look what we got here on our desk. We got a sponsor.
Yes.
Defense Drinks, a drink that does more. In addition to hydration or pre-workout, it helps strengthen your joints, reduce soreness, and is sweetened with what? How do you say that word? Allulose?
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 It's not sucralose.
Allulose? Yeah, we're getting a head shake, yeah. So it doesn't spike your blood sugar or disturb your insulin levels. That's the important thing.
And you know what?
Allulose. So,
and you know what my philosophy is? We don't get to put anything out here unless I try it, which I did try.
How
it.
you feeling over there?
It's actually good. Yeah, it tastes great. So for having allulose and not sucralose or sucrose or whatever the other stuff is, it tastes actually very, very good.
Let's dive into some BYU basketball. Vanquish the Foe reporting that Noah Waterman has received his waiver.
Yes.
And that's going to allow him to come back next year, which is a big deal, which is also why he didn't participate in the senior send-offs that Jackson Robinson did and Spencer Johnson and two guys that played a lot this year.
That gave us a kind of a heads up. Hey, they fully expect that he's going to get this waiver. Otherwise, they would have said, hey, just in case we're going to have Noah walk. But no, Noah's not walking. We expect to get his waiver, and sure enough, here we are a week later, and he gets the waiver. So that's good news.
Basketball team ranked 21st in today's final AP Top 25 prior to the big dance. 23-10 now. Of course, they went 10-8 in the Big 12. Let's talk about that tournament real quick, and then we're going to bring in our experts.
Yeah, Iowa State won the Big 12 championship. They routed Houston in the finals, 69-41. They held Houston to 41 points. Iowa State all year has been 1 or 2 in the defensive efficiency metrics in the country, and they looked all of that on Saturday. During the regular season, remember, BYU beat the Cyclones 87-72 in Provo. They lost on the road 68-63 in Ames. That's how competitive the Cougs have been in this first year in the Big 12. So Big 12 tournament champs were a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and then Houston, the runner-up, but the regular season champ, number one seed in the NCAA tournament.
Tyler Haas tournament picks. He was 8-2 after the quarterfinals. Remember last year he rolled through the Big 12 last week. Finished 9-5. Once he got after the quarterfinals, the wheels came off.
Yeah.
But Iowa State looked really good. So the NCAA tournament, BYU plays Duquesne Thursday, 10:40 a.m. Mountain Time on True TV and BYU Radio. From Omaha, Nebraska, the winner will play the winner of Illinois and Morehead State on Saturday. Let's bring in Greg and let's bring in Mark on Zoom. Our pleasure to welcome back to the Wise Guys BYU's radio announcers, the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell and Mark Durant, his tag team partner, a broadcast team that is in their 28th season working together. I got that right, I hope, this time.
Is it 28 years for you and Mark?
It's 28.
28. DJ, can we get Greg's mic on?
That is amazing, actually.
Getting ready to call another NCAA tournament. Mark's there on the Zoom. Hey, brother, good evening. Hey, we can't hear you.
Hey, are you muted, Mark?
Let's see if we get our board squared away.
Or do we need to unmute you here?
Okay, try again.
Hello.
There we go.
Greg, we got yours on?
I have nothing in my headset. I can't hear. I can see Mark lips. I should be able to. At this point, I should be able to.
Let me make sure I get.
Muted.
Let's make sure I get.
Yeah. We are not going to have you.
There we go.
Have muted. Gotcha. You got it. We're
yes,
good.
I can hear myself.
We have technology. We do have technology here,
guys. It's great to have the two of you on the show. I know you're busy preparing for the big dance on Thursday. Let's start with the question that seemed to be buzzing around the social media world. Did the Cougs get snubbed in the seeding of a 6 seed and heading to Omaha and not anything better heading to Salt Lake? I believe that Sunday play is the key, but Gregory, what do you think?
Yeah, the committee this season decided to throw all their 4-5 pods in Friday, Sunday sites or feeding into Friday, Sunday sites in the second weekend. So, they have the prerogative of kind of putting whoever they want, wherever they want. And it just turned out that the 4-5s were going places BYU couldn't go. And so they had to, and BYU's been dropped a seed line before due to Sunday play. So this was another one of those situations. But on the flip side, again, you look at it initially and you say, well, they got snubbed and they got dropped a seed line, but they're playing a team that looks more like a team a 5 seed might play. So they didn't get the toughest 11 seed by any stretch, by the metrics at least. Now, I caution that Duquesne is one of the hottest teams in the country, right? They've won 8 in a row. They won 4 games in 5 days to win the A-10 title. They've won 10 of 11. Yeah. So there's really 2 ways to look at this thing. Metrics-wise, say you got a pretty good draw for an 11. Looks more like a 12, maybe a 13. But you've also got one of the hottest teams in the country right now that feels like can do anything. And now they've also got their coach announcing today he's gonna retire as soon as the run is done. So they want to make it as long a run as possible. So now they have that to deal with as well. So not a lot of things have broken BYU's way in the last couple of days, but it's all about what's going to happen on the floor on Thursday now.
Mark, you had some nice tweets since the tournament was laid out. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Dave, they're all good.
Yeah.
Mark,
some are better.
Mark, that even when you're not on the show, I recommend everybody, I tell them, hey, Mark Durant's a good follow. He's funny. I tell everybody to follow Mark Durant.
So what do you think of the 6 seed?
Well, it's not sexy. It's a 6 seed, and I don't like it. I'm not as diplomatic as Greg. I think it was highly disrespectful and almost ridiculous to think that they would put all the 5 seed pods going. I mean, it's so easy to fix. It's just a little bit silly. Now, I will agree with Greg. I think they really tried to fix it on the back end, and it's fine, and Omaha's fine. But man, this was a pretty impressive season, and I think BYU deserved the seed that they qualified for, which clearly they did, and to play in Salt Lake City. It's rare that you get that opportunity. They don't have it. With that said, I think they've got a nice situation. As good as Duquesne is, that's a good spot for them, and that regional setup is a nice pathway forward for them. So I think the committee fixed it a little bit on the back end, but listen, I thought it was disrespectful. I'll just go out and say it. And with that said, maybe that'll just give a little bit of motivation to these guys. I know a couple of them might use it as motivation, and so that might help. We'll see.
I don't remember in past years where the NCAA actually releasing, hey, here's the actual seeds, like the seeds, the list. Yeah. And BYU comes out and there's 17, which would make them not only a 5, but the number 1 5 seed. Have they done that in the past?
They do release the seed list after, but it's not been like the last 10 years. It's been more like the last 5 or 6 years I think they've done it.
And so they basically just admitted, BYU.
Yeah, well, they said, sorry, it was a Friday, Sunday thing, and we had to drop them down. And, their regulations allow for it. You can do that. It's by the rules. It's just, again, Mark said they had to they didn't have to put every 4 or 5 pod in a Friday, Sunday, but they chose to do that. And the irony is they rank ahead of their former West Coast Conference brethren, Gonzaga and St. Mary's, who both jumped them in the seed drop, as it turns out. So
and even San Diego State jumped them in the seed drop.
And they beat San Diego State head-to-head. So, yeah.
Well, and as you mentioned, it's the 4-5 because they play. So they would have the option, we can move them up a seed line, but they made that impossible as well. The only option was to move them down.
They were going to be a 5 or a 6, according to the committee, and that was about it.
And you both have mentioned, hey, we like this first-round matchup with Duquesne. Well, I agree. Really defensive team. They beat VCU 57-51. I did that league for 10 years. Yeah. And they've not been good in the past. This is kind of the best they've been in a long, long time. The coach hangs his hat on defense. That's an interesting matchup. But then you turn around on Saturday and likely play Illinois, who just wants to get up and down the floor and score 90 points. What a contrasting couple of games for BYU. If they beat this Duquesne team, now they face that. What do you think about the 1-2 of this Thursday, Saturday?
Well, backing up to Mark's point, first of all, I do think that the chip on the shoulder mentality's helped BYU already this year a couple times, and now they can hopefully feed off of that in the NCAA tournament with the snub. Let's call it a snub to a 6, right? And they've been able to use that in the past. Getting past Duquesne, by the interestingly, if you look, I did this research last night. A little surprising. Over the last decade, the 11's got a winning record over the 6.
That's interesting, isn't it?
In the first round.
Hey, last time BYU was in,
they were a 6 and lost to the 11.
Yeah.
Of course, previous to that, last time they were a 6, they went to the Elite 8. So they got two sides of the coin there. But it is interesting.
That one guy who'd they have?
Yeah.
But over the last decade, losing record 17 and 19 against the 11s. So the 11s are the popular upset more than the 12-5. The 11s have done quite well. So you get past Duquesne. Easier said than done. I still think there's a lot of things to worry about with Duquesne. Illinois just won the Big Ten tournament, right? They have a couple of defensive parts of their profile that remind me a lot of like a St. Mary's in terms of, now they play a much faster pace than St. Mary's, but defensively you don't get threes up against them, and you've got to do it if you're BYU with regularity, and that's one of those teams that just kind of takes that part away. So that's the one thing that looming I don't like necessarily on the surface. The fact that that's been one strength of Illinois is taking away the 3, and BYU really needs it. They have had games, Texas comes to mind, where they've just gone to town inside too, where Texas really did try to take it away and did so successfly. And BYU had like a 75% day inside the arc and still won. So there's a ways around it, but I just look at that and go, yeah, okay, that's looming. But and every breakdown you see puts Illinois as one of the most efficient offensive teams in the country right now too. And so BYU's in a group. Auburn, Illinois, UConn, BYU. These are 4 of the top 10 offenses, and they're all in the same region.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Mark, it seems that this time of year, everything gets physical. And back at the Big 12 tournament, it got physical with UCF. It certainly got physical with Texas Tech. Texas Tech took BYU out of its rhythm, out of its flow, out of its movement away from the ball. And their head coach talked about it at halftime. How'd we get the lead? Well, we took away their movement off the ball. Not the guy with the ball. We just bugged everybody else, got them out of rhythm. Then they couldn't hit open shots. I wrote an article about it in the Deseret News tonight. That's the strategy. This time of year, you get physical with BYU. If you beat them physically, you can beat them mentally. How did the Cougars come from that Texas Tech game and kind of reboot to both physical and mental and go on the attack on Thursday?
Yeah, even though they didn't play particularly well against Texas Tech and we're not physical, that doesn't mean they haven't been physical all year long. And they've run through that gauntlet. They know how to play and what it takes to, battle with those types of teams. And I think they'll be ready to go in that respect. And BYU's got some sneaky, mean sons of guns on their team. Trevin Nell gets in people's faces, and he's not afraid to mix it up. Spencer Johnson, obviously, good defender. You got Richie Saunders is a night. I think I have dreams about having to have him guard me in a game, and it's not pleasant. I mean, he's always in. So they've got guys that really can get after it. Now, they've got to kind of set their mind to it. I think if they do, that they are able to be physical with anybody in the country, and they've shown it going on the road. I mean, that Kansas team, say what you want, on that road, they were very physical and beat BYU, just matched right up with them. But they're going to have that mindset. They didn't have it against Texas Tech, so it's that's the last we saw of them. So obviously that's a concern. But I think this team in these big time games will be ready to go and will be physical. And BYU is more suited, I think, than ever to be physical. They've got a lot of depth, big, strong guys like Foose, and Ali Khalifa is like a house to try and move. And some of those guys that I mentioned, Noah Waterman, I think, is a terrific defender and can get physical with you. So listen, it was a bad taste after that Texas Tech game, but I don't think that's this team. And I think they're more prepared for the types of teams that they'll see at least past the first round, the Illinois and the Iowa States of the world, than they've ever been for this tournament because of what they went through in the Big 12.
Greg, you tweeted out today a lot about Duquesne. People want to know a little bit about this Duquesne team. Mm-hmm. They haven't allowed a team to score more than 80-plus points in the last 22 games. Yeah. And you tweeted that out today. I went, whoa. And BYU's averaging 81.8 a game. What gives here in this game.
As someone who's covered that league for a while, this is one of those teams that loves to play the lower score. And again, I keep thinking about St. Mary's because I've had that in my mind for the last 12 years. Those kinds of games, those are the games that St. Mary's wins, 62-58 and 58-53, and that's what you're getting with Duquesne a lot. So they're coming off a game where if you can shoot under 30%. And win by a couple possessions in a tournament title game like they just did. That's who they shot 29% against VCU yesterday and won by 6. That's who they are. They're going to kind of ugly it up a little bit and hope for the best. The head of the snake is the 2-guard tandem of Day Grant and Jimmy Clark. Mm-hmm. And Day is one of those guys, and BYU's seen enough of them this year that can go off. He's got a career high of 32.
Is he a Pop Isaacs kind of guy?
Well, yeah, with Pop Isaacs, Darius Johnson, name your guy this year.
He's not the 6'6" long. He's 6'2" and more stocky built, and he'll just come at you.
And he is. Remember Brandon Ewing from Wyoming? He's Brandon Ewing.
Yes.
And they've got two of them really. These two guys account for 45% of their free throws attempts on the season. They come from the guard line. They're not. These guys are downhill runners getting to the rim. They have incredible free throw totals. And Day's fourth nationally in free throw percentage. He's 94%. And so he will attack you and make you pay when he gets fouled. And he gets fouled a ton. They're a really interesting team, a compelling matchup in a lot of ways, and kind of confounding because they do it in a way that's not necessarily fitting BYU's style. They do it on defense. Their offensive numbers are not impressive. They don't do anything particularly well offensively besides get downhill and get fouled a lot.
Yeah, get to the line.
But so they're mediocre offensively, but really good defensively. And that's how they win these games. They've won 3 games this year scoring under 60 points. They don't need to BYU is one of those teams they're comfy 75, 80. That's kind of where they need to be. That's their wheelhouse. Can BYU win a lower scoring game if it turns out that way?
And you mentioned 57-51 in that championship game. VCU, I've had a bunch of VCU games in the last 10 years. They hang their hat on defense too. So that game, when I saw they were going to match up those two teams, I went, oh my goodness, this is going to be the worst, boringest championship game ever. And it would have been that. Mark, question for you for BYU. Felt like early in the year to me, it was one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. And they still have been solid, but not like they were early in the year. I just felt like they dominated on the offensive glass. This is a Duquesne team. In that championship game, they had 18 offensive boards. They were plus 10 in offensive rebounding margin. That's how you shoot 29% and still win a basketball game, right? So how does BYU have to respond? What do they need to do to kind of get that mojo back on the offensive glass?
Yeah, that was BYU's formula, and a big part of their offense really is we're going to jack up a lot of threes, and then we're going to go get them when we miss them. And BYU did a great job early in the season, particularly on that. They haven't done a terrible job in the Big 12, but the fact is that the Big 12's got bigger, better guys, and one of the things you have to worry about is just the speed in the Big 12. So if you're going all out to get an offensive rebound, you get a little top heavy towards the baseline, those guys are going to go down and it's going to be a layup drill. So you've got some issues in the Big 12 that you didn't have in the preseason with respect to rebounding, but that's still got to be a big part of what BYU does. So they can maybe shoot around 28, 30% from three and still be able to win games because of that. And I think this game against Duquesne will probably be a little bit more like what we saw in the preseason as far as their ability to rebound on the offensive boards. But it's going to be a challenge. But that's a big part because if you're not getting offensive rebounds, then you better shoot well because that's the formula. And we talk about these really good defensive teams. I like playing against good defensive team. That makes my mouth water a little bit. Greg will have the numbers, but there's been several top, 5-10 defensive teams that BYU scored the most or almost the most points against those teams. So I like the fact that Duquesne's a good defensive team because I think BYU has performed well against really good defensive teams. The teams that make me worry are the Illinois that are highly efficient on offense because BYU's at times had a hard time slowing those types of teams down, and guys get super hot against BYU. Now BYU can run with anybody and score enough points with anybody, but I'd actually prefer the type of game where it's a defensive team. They're going to beat you on defense because BYU's shown that they can really put up points against good defensive teams.
Man, that's a great point, Greg, because I think of great defensive teams, Houston and Iowa State. are two of the best in the Iowa State. When I watch that team, I just think defense, and BYU played really well against Iowa State.
And I want to add UCF to the list too.
Right, that's right.
Those were 2 games they won, 3 games they won against a team that, I mean, that they can really challenge you too, and they really make it hard around the rim, and I thought BYU did well to go 3-0 against UCF. Hope UCF wins a couple games in the NIT, because I think that was a team that actually was looking good by the end of the season. I thought those were good wins. Playing off of Mark's point about offensive rebounding, at least it's in BYU's wheelhouse that they're still a top 25 defensive rebounding team.
Right.
So they can hopefully neutralize some of the other teams' offensive efforts that way, no doubt.
Greg Wrubell, Mark Durant on with us on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. Nice to see the live streamers in from all over the world tonight.
I love this one. Forrest Gump 12able. Is that right? Forrest Gump 12able says, I've been shopping around all day about good info on BYU and Duquesne. This is the best, bar none. So there you go. We appreciate that.
TV time Thursday, 10:40 a.m. That's Mountain Time start on True TV. Radio coverage starts at 9:30 Mountain Time on BYU Radio with Greg and Mark. Cougars a 7.5 to 8 point favorite from what we've seen so far today. Guys, we're going to talk about your tournament histories, because the two of you have called a number of NCAA tournament games. In just a moment, get your keys to Thursday. But maybe, Greg, the question early is, how important will pacing be in that game right from the tip-off?
Yeah, if you take a look at, just straight up tempo, Duquesne's, bottom 100, nationally. So they're not, and BYU's not like top 100, but they're faster. BYU's a faster paced team. I really do think this is not revelation, but it feels like these games where BYU, if they struggle early from 3, it's going to be a long day. And the days where they kind of knock down their first couple or 2 of their first 4, they settle in and kind of do what they want to do. But I almost hate the cliche, because I think they're more than this. But the live by the 3, die by the 3 thing is kind of a thing with this team. I go back to the magic number, and Mark's probably tired of hearing it by now, but they haven't won a game under 32% yet this year.
Right.
32 is not a huge number. I mean, if you're making 32, 33, you're making 1 of every 3, but that's been good enough for BYU. They're 23-2 when they're 32% or better, and they're 0-8 when they're under that number. If they're having a decent day, and don't have to be great, not to be lights out, just be good enough, that tends to be enough for this team. And on the days where they don't have it, they're probably not going to win. That's kind of how it's been this year for BYU.
Mark, what do you think on that pacing?
Well, I mean, it depends on the game. Obviously, if BYU can get a little bit of a lead, it's harder for a team to play with the slow pace. But BYU, like I said, has not really been slowed down in many games, and as it's important in every game. But this team has struggled recently in getting off to a fast start. They did it against UCF. They played well at Iowa State, got off to a pretty good start. But when they don't, and they're struggling to get back into it, it's more difficult for them. But BYU, I think, is difficult to rein in, and that's why they've been successful. I mean, if you're a defensive team and you give up and you're not scoring a lot of buckets, that 3-point is worth even more than 3 points, because it's just harder for that type of team to get back into the game. And the formula just doesn't work for that. So they're going to have to come out, if they want to really compete with BYU, and try and match them with some of the 3-pointers and play a little bit faster. If their theory is we're just going to take the air out of the basketball against a team, BYU inevitably will hit 2 or 3 in a row, and it's going to speed them up, and it's going to be hard for any team to play that type of basketball against BYU, in my opinion.
And Greg, you mentioned that 32% number. Duquesne, 3-point percentage defense, 31.7. So they're right on that, on that mark where it's the either or for BYU. And so this will be an interesting challenge.
And they've had good days. They've had those days where they hit 10, 14 threes as well. They were a 50% 3-point team in the first half, I think, against VCU and earning a nice lead. So they can do it too. And I just go back to those 2 guards. They are a handful. And I'm having recent PTSD, maybe Mark too, about some of these guys BYU's seen where they get turned on and it's tough to turn them off.
Yeah,
and BYU's been able to survive some of those games.
Some amazing performances this year on the opposite team.
Yes,
I mean,
have.
There's like 5 or 6 all time. I can't believe he's making these shots. He's going nuts type performances this year. Yeah. It's actually been pretty fun to watch. if you can get over the PTSD of it.
This league that they come, this Atlantic 10, is a league that has a lot of good guards, really good guard play. But that league doesn't have the bigs that the Big 12 has. And so, BYU should have more size and ability to enforce that kind of size. And they've played against physical size. Don't get me wrong, Duquesne's going to be really physical on that guard line, and they'll play you tough. But they don't just have the sheer size that the Big 12 teams have week after week.
And Ali Khalifa should be feeling better after a week off. And Foose, I think, is really looking like Foose now. And that's good. I think also something that hasn't really been talked a lot about, but it's just that Big 12 teams got introduced to BYU, and especially the ones that played them twice or three times. They got a real feel for how to play BYU, but it took a while. You could tell the league, it took a while to figure BYU out, quote unquote. And even then, BYU still had success. But teams that don't know BYU and haven't played BYU and are coming off a quick turnaround to face BYU's stuff is a challenge. Yeah. BYU's stuff is hard to guard. And I think a first time, a one-off, there's a real advantage to BYU there. Big 12 teams were kind of got a rude awakening to how it is to guard BYU, but they settled in a little bit and made some adjustments as the season went along. But for a team that's getting them one time only, I think what BYU runs is just hard to guard. And if BYU's hitting threes at a regular rate, it's going to be a tough day for Duquesne.
So you're telling us that tough for Duquesne, but you're also telling us that Illinois, who's got to prepare for a Thursday game as well, and if BYU can get by Duquesne and get to Illinois, that's a tough 2-day turnaround for Illinois, who really didn't play a team like BYU in the Big Ten this year. Is that what you're saying as well?
Well, I've done less work on Illinois, obviously, than I have on Duquesne. Right. But I peeked ahead to see what their profiles were looking like. And then when you combine the job they do against the three with how well they run, how much they score, and how efficiently they are on offense, I think that's a legitimate 3 seed. And I've seen a lot of people saying I like BYU in the Sweet 16, but that's as tough a second-round matchup as you're going to find. And this is a BYU team that doesn't have usually sustained success in the NCAA tournament. It's been a while, right? So you go back to 2011 was the last time they got out of or won a game. I'm not going to count the first 4 game against Iona because that's not the round of 64 yet. So if you look at it, BYU's on a 4-game NCAA tournament losing streak, and they haven't won a round of 64 game in 13 years. So looking ahead to Illinois is like, well, let's just first things first.
Go beat Duquesne and then talk about it.
Let's talk about Khalifa. Mark, if there's pressure on everybody, obviously, and BYU's a team that distributes points throughout the 7, 8, 9 guys that get on the floor. But when Khalifa hit those first 2 threes against UCF, they just didn't know what to do. And they had seen him twice before. But when he came out and missed his first 2 against Texas Tech, and then the Red Raiders were up 9-0 and then built on that. So is there more pressure on Khalifa because of what he does and his uniqueness to strike early, to let a defense know that they got big problems, because now the guys can cut to the basket because the center's got to come out and deal with Khalifa, which opens the door for Foose to come in a little later and go down low. But is the bullet, is Khalifa the target for Duquesne's defense?
Well, if Khalifa's hitting shots, I mean, that puts so much stress on a defense because, like you said, if he's hitting they got to pull that 5 guy all the way out to the 3-point line to contest. And then it's just easy pickings for Ali Khalifa, right? And to Greg's point about, your teams figuring BYU out a little bit, but it always cracked me up. Teams, I think, came into BYU thinking, yeah, we got it. We're fine. And then backdoor after backdoor, it's like a layup drill. And no, they weren't fine. They weren't ready. And until you play against him and what he can do, and you have to worry so much about coming over the top of a screen so they don't get a 3, and then they've got the backdoor cut with the best passer in the country, that is hugely difficult to stop. Now, if Ali Khalifa's not making a 3, or if they're taking away the backdoor and the guys are coming off and getting open looks from 3, and you're not punishing them for what they're doing defensively, yeah, it's going to be tough for you. And that's what happened with Texas Tech. BYU did get shots, but did not punish Texas Tech for the way they were playing. And so that's obviously going to be a long day for you. But man, if Ali Khalifa's hitting and guys are hitting 3s, they have to fight through that screen. And all of a sudden it's a layup drill with Ali Khalifa backdoor. They've never seen anything like him. There's no way to prepare for him. You have to play against him a couple, 3 times to figure it out a little bit, but it's going to be a real challenge for any team in the tournament to figure out what he does to you.
You know, a question for both of you, because we're watching the TV broadcast and listening to them, and they're going, wow, you know, Texas Tech's doing such a great job. And we were all sitting there. I want to know if you guys said this on the radio broadcast, and we're going, no, they're not doing a great job. BYU has wide open looks from 3, and they just can't make a shot. Sometimes it's not the defense is playing great. Sometimes you're just not making a shot. Did you guys talk about that in that Tech game?
Well, I'm sure we did, because we're very astute, and so if that was, you know, Greg sometimes misses stuff, but I rarely ever do.
Hey, look.
No, we talk about that, and you look at some of the games that BYU has shot under 32% or in the 20s. You obviously you have to give credit for Texas Tech and other teams with how, because they're good and they're contesting, but I think if you ask Mark Pope, that most of the shots that BYU's take are the shots he wants, even in those games, and some nights you're just not shooting the ball well, and so that's I think the real question mark for BYU fans everywhere is, I know this team can win every game they're in. And I know that they can make a run to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or Final Four, whatever. They're good enough to. But have they put together 4, 5, 6 games in a row where they have shot 35% plus from 3? I don't know that they have. So that's the real question mark is, can they consistently hit the 3 in this tournament game after game, or will they have an off night? And then what happens in the off night? Will they be able to find some other way to win? So that's kind of the question for a lot of people. Is it's not that BYU is not awesome and doing great and could win it all. It's just that they've seen during this season where they've had an off night for whatever reason and lost games.
The Cougars are 15-33 in the Big Dance, 11-23 since the NCAA adopted their seeding format in 1979. Mm-hmm. High seed of 3 in 2011. They had a 4-94, deepest run, the Elite 8 in 1991. How many games you guys called, Greg, in the Big Dance?
Oh gosh, I'm
thinking I've got like a list of 12, 13.
Well, we started
14.
I guess our first tournament game together would have been in 2001. Now, Mark played in games, but we can't count those. But together, right. Broadcasting 2001 against Cincinnati and San Diego. So every game from 2001 on. So what is that, around?
Let's see. 15? I can tell you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
We've called 17 games.
So what was the funnest?
Beating Gonzaga in Denver to get to the Sweet 16 was that because BYU had it had been forever since they got out of the first weekend, right?
Right.
So just winning a game was one thing, and then winning 2 was the next hurdle. I think the year before that they'd beaten Kansas State, or no, they'd beaten Florida and then lost to Kansas State, and then the next year they get the Wofford Gonzaga thing and got to the Sweet 16. That to me kind of felt like it. It was a Jimmer season, so you're already on such a high energy roll to begin with, and then getting out of the first weekend of the Sweet 16. Last time BYU's advanced was that week, so I'll probably say the game against the Zags. That was also right before BYU's about to join the WCC. You're thinking, well, this is a way to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Hello,
that's
Gonzaga,
why they
right?
didn't like us. Right,
there was
from
that
the
whole
start.
thing. So
which was more fun, that the NCAA tournament that year in beating Gonzaga, or the conference tournament? Like Jimmer had some. I realized they lost in the finals, but you guys called both of those San Diego State regular season games. You called the San Diego State, but how about that New Mexico game in the semifinals when Jimmer had 52? That had to be a fun one.
Yeah, I lost my mind on that one. That was just because he kept going, and he wasn't. And he shot one free throw, I think.
Yeah,
the entire night.
It was nuts.
Just the one.
And Danny's courtside, Ainge's court, and he breaks Danny's record. It was just a remarkable night.
Yeah.
Well, the whole Jimmer season was just a blast. But Mark, do you have anything? Again, I'm just thinking top of my mind, but the Gonzaga win, I think, feels like the biggest game we've called. Ironically, a game Mark wasn't there for was the Iona comeback, which was the first 4 game, but that was when they were down.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They were down 25. Mark had something else going on. I don't know.
Come on.
Sometimes
unless it was a wedding.
Sometimes the attorney in him comes out, and he has to do some other stuff, right?
Listen, I don't have the flexibility I have now back then. Man. I was trying to make a name for myself. I'm not like Blaine, who just has to go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, type job.
I wish.
Mark, what game was your most enjoyable call?
Yeah, not to, reiterate, but because that Gonzaga, I remember we beat Wofford and I'm sitting there watching Gonzaga play.
I think I beat St. John's.
And I thought to myself, there is no way we'll beat these guys. No way. I mean, who was it? Sacre and they were so big. And I thought we didn't have Brand. I thought we are toast, and we just demolished them, and it wasn't even close. And so that was really cool. And then, we had some Florida overtime games, which were really exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that win over Gonzaga, because I didn't really expect it, and it was so fun to beat those guys. And they played great. That was fun.
And even though BYU didn't win the game, just getting to the NCAA tournament in 2001 was a big deal, because Mark and I broke in together. I called most of the 1-25 season, and then our next year together was the 9-21, Steve Cleveland's first year, and now it's the climb back, right, from the abyss. And so just getting to the tournament in 2001, winning the Mountain West tournament in Vegas, by the way.
That's right. Who was that? Was that the Keena Young team and that group? Who was that?
It was a McKelly Wesley
team.
team.
Oh, McKelly's team.
Terrell,
that's right.
Trent Whiting, Terrell Day. So beating New Mexico in Vegas to win a conference, which they haven't done since, right?
Right.
So to win a conference tournament, clinching your berth and that meant BYU was kind of back. They got themselves back, right? Because they were at the depths, and now they got themselves. So even though they didn't play great against Cincinnati and were kind of out of gas and lost the game, just being in San Diego for that NCAA tournament just felt special, because it was such a climb to get there.
Mark, you played in on three tournament teams, 90, 93, and 95. And you've called a whole bunch of games with Greg as an announcer. So does the blood still get going on game day come Thursday for this Duquesne matchup? Because you have the comparison of what it was like as a player to take the floor.
Well, like my marriage, every year it just gets better and better for me in basketball. And I really enjoy not having to play it, because that was really hard. And going to practice, I don't know how these guys do it, but I loved playing in the tournament. That was super cool. And there's nothing like the NCAA tournament. It's so great. It's got such a great feeling, and the environment, and it's really special to be a part of. And this season has kind of reinvigorated me, going to all these great new venues and great teams, and how well BYU's played. So I'm more excited this year than I've been in a little while, just because BYU has put themselves in a nice position. Obviously, anything can happen in any game in the tournament, but to be able to go to the tournament with good expectations, with a team that's very good after a really nice year, that's what it's all about. That's really fun for a player, for a broadcaster, for a fan. This is good stuff.
Mark was done with Portland. He was done with Moraga. He was done with Stockton. Like he was ready for a change of scenery.
I was not done with Malibu, though.
Oh, no.
Dave and I were done with Stockton.
There's enough places to eat in Malibu to keep it fresh.
Where was the place? I mentioned this before. We stayed someplace. I don't know if you guys stayed at the same hotel.
It was the Santa Clara game.
Yeah, we stayed in a hotel. First of all, it had razor wire around it, and then it was on New Year's Eve, and nothing was open, and we had to knock on the window of a gas station. The guy had already closed, so he could bring us out some stuff to stick in the microwave that we could eat for dinner on New Year's Eve.
We should have been shot then.
I am so done with the WCC.
Greg, what about you? This is the Stanley Cup for a hockey fan to say, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the big dance.
I've never lost the thrill of applying for the credentials and showing up on the practice day and seeing all the, because all the teams come in on the same day, and you get your little designated time on the floor, and they put your logo up and they announce you, and your fans are in the building. Even just the practice day is a fun vibe day, and then once you get into the madness, it's incomparable. There's nothing. Football has its bowl season, but it doesn't feel the same way. Basketball has a unique rhythm and build. The fact that it's only 68 teams, it's so hard to get into this thing.
Is it the elimination factor that it's
if you lose, you're done?
It's over?
It almost feels, but it's a lot to get there. Like BYU's already accomplished so much, putting themselves, because first year in the Big 12, playing any kind of postseason would have been great. The fact that you're locked like a month and a half ago in the Big 12. It just kept getting better and better, and then you win at Kansas, and like what could even be? And it just kept going. The games kept getting bigger and better, And so the fact you even just get there is such a victory already. Like it's a huge accomplishment. And how long you want to last as long as possible, but it's hard to win games in this thing. And BYU's experience, they brought really good teams there in the past and have had quick exits, and so it's hard to advance. So I think the difficulty of it all makes it special.
Do you have in your mind a national champ this year? Does the national championship come to the Big 12 this year in your mind? I'll ask that to both of you. And to you too, Dave. We're going to give our Final Fours. But.
We're going to give our Final Fours a little bit later on. But what do we got? We got 8 Big 12 teams in there.
So what do you think, Mark? Is there a Big 12 team that can win the national championship this year?
Yeah, I think Houston, I was just shocked by what Iowa State did to Houston because I watched the game before that and they played in one of the games and they looked fantastic. And they had such a great year. And so I certainly can see Houston. I hope Iowa State doesn't because I hope BYU beats Iowa State, but they have that same type of team. But, seeing teams from all over the country and seeing what, past years and what the Big 12 brings, it's legit. Whatever you want to say about, juicing the metrics or whatever the concern is about the Big 12 this year, their history in the tournament and the teams that I saw this year are as good as I've ever seen. And it was one team after another. And so for Houston to do what they did in the Big 12 in the regular season, they have to be a real favorite for this tournament. And Iowa State could be a sleeper. Obviously BYU is my pick, but I just don't, looking out across the country, I don't see any other big team that would have a better chance than those teams that I just mentioned.
Greg?
I think I'm going to avoid the East region because I want BYU to go all the way in that region. So a Big 12 team out of the West, I think Baylor could get to the national championship to get to the Final Four.
Bunch of NBA guys in that team.
And I think this isn't great in terms of going under the radar, but Houston, I think their defense will stifle some people that just don't know how to react to it.
And they're mad now.
Yeah. The thing is, when they don't make shots, they don't look very good.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw on the weekend.
We also saw that in Provo when BYU had a legitimate shot to take them down.
Had a couple shots late to tie or take a lead. So I think Houston and Baylor are 2 Big 12 teams out of the South and the West that could get there. Tough to pick up against Purdue right now. I like Purdue.
They're really good
in their region. I don't know that TCU, nor Kansas, nor Texas has what it takes to get out of that bracket. So I kind of like Purdue, Houston, and Baylor. And then again, the East region I want to see play out and hope that BYU gets magical.
BYU gets magic and starts knocking down threes. And like you said, they're a tough team to prepare for on short notice. Who knows, right? It's the kind of team that could be a Cinderella team and just go on a string and get there.
And how many teams do we see that get a break on the other side of the bracket where a favored seed somehow has a bad night and now you don't get the team you think you're going to get and you get someone different and it helps you go an extra round or two. That's the beauty of the tournament as well, is that not everything is going to go according to plan, and sometimes it benefits a team that it helps them become magical.
One thing Cinderella does every year is hit big shots.
Yes, they do.
And
I think
that
this
becomes
team
the story.
is so likable too, and they play such a fun style. And Ali Khalifa is just such a unique commodity. And if BYU could win a game or two, and they're shooting the lights out, shooting all these threes, I mean, that could be a big story. And you get a little momentum going, and everyone's excited about you. You see it every year in this tournament. BYU could definitely be that team this year. I know they've got a pretty good seed, so it's not necessarily a Cinderella, but not a lot of people know about BYU and what they can do, and they're fun. I mean, this is a fun, exciting style of basketball. So if they could get hot, win a couple of games, they're going to be a huge story.
And every year a personality emerges that becomes kind of like a little folk hero of sorts. That's why I hope Ali is feeling good, because if he helps get BYU through the first weekend, his style of play, his uniqueness, and then you add the fact that he's honoring Ramadan right now and fasting, and he's another daytime game for Ali. Richie Saunders is, again, with the headband and the hair and the way he plays, a guy that can jump off the screen and become somebody people pay attention to.
The look on his face.
So there are a couple guys, that you could gravitate toward if BYU makes a little bit of a run here, and those two come to mind certainly.
I'm so glad you said. I've had a couple of people reach out to me from back home in New York and go, who is this Ali Khalifa dude? I can't take my eyes off of him. Like, how can a dude like that pass it like that? And
so if you look at the top 25 and assist to turnover ratio today, it's a bunch of guys between 5'10 and 6'4.
Yeah.
And then it's this 6'11 guy sitting at number 2 nationally.
Yeah.
Like, he's totally a unicorn.
And the way he wears his headband, David, like, physics don't even allow it. Like, it can't be that high and stay on.
It just stays on. Craig Cusick's going to join us in a few minutes as we wrap up here just a bit with Greg Wrubell and Mark Durant. We're going to talk about the top 5 arenas they had enjoyed in the Big 12 to call a game. Top 5. We like top 5 lists, and so we're going to knock that one out. But before we do that, let me ask you this one, because this one feels like, remember 2010, BYU got back to the big dance. They got into the second round, and it was a precursor.
They beat Florida, right?
Yeah,
and
2 overtimes, right?
Yeah. It was a precursor to 2011 and what they did.
Yeah.
With everybody coming back next year except for maybe Jackson Robinson and Spencer Johnson, and you add Colin Chandler and a couple of others, could this be a setup for, well, next year won't be the first year of all this stuff in the Big 12, and BYU goes back bigger and stronger?
With Colin Chandler joining.
Yeah, and Isaac Davis.
Yeah.
And the fact, BYU has only 2 guys who played in a tournament game right now, and it was
Dawson
minutes.
Baker, too. Let's throw him in there.
Yeah, and that's a guy with a career high of 32, 33 in a game. That's a super explosive player. So the only experience they've got right now were a sprinkling of minutes in the UCLA game in that weird COVID vibe tournament of 2021. Next year, they would bring back guys with significant experience in the NCAA tournament. And every coach talks about the desire to get old, and so few can do it. Yet BYU already did it and could do it again, which is the crazy thing. But let's not ignore the fact that Mark Pope's going to have to re-recruit his players again, which everyone now has to do.
Every year, right?
You might be surprised by somebody that you didn't think was going to go that suddenly goes. So I think it's good they've got the guys coming in, because you got to be prepared. But if this group came back again, despite Spencer who graduates and Jackson if he leaves, and again, there's still a chance, slim although it may be. What if Jackson decided that, well, you know what, this was a good run and I could get better one more year? Wow, what a bonus that would be. I don't want to count on that at all. But yeah, why not, as they say, run it back, as the kids say, next year. And they wouldn't be picked 13th in the Big 12. We know that next year. And so, with so few teams can do what BYU did this year, to be able to do it again, what a luxury that would be.
Special. I'm going to ask you a follow-up to that about Jackson, because a lot of people have asked about it. So in college basketball, it's a little different than football. He can go participate in NBA camps, pre-draft camps, and all that kind of stuff, and get some evaluation and decide if he wants to that he can come back. So if he goes and they go, hey, you're really good, but you're probably a late round or a second rounder or a free agent, does he come back?
Yeah, I don't know what his desire is. If he likes it enough to say, I want another year of this exact same experience. If I want to say, I'll take a gamble and play at a different pro level and work my way up that way. I hope he's having a good time at BYU. I hope he loves his teammates, and I think he does. And I mean, again, because everyone's already kind of counting on him leaving. What would that mean? He'd be showing up on preseason all Big 12 lists and things like that. So from a selfish standpoint, if you've got one more, if you can do it, why not do it? You'll never have this experience again that you haven't. I think college is a special thing. Mark talks about it too, Durant. It's a special thing, and don't be so. Don't be in too much of a hurry to cast it aside and go to the next level, because the next level sometimes isn't all it's cracked
and
up
it's
to be.
hard. And it's hard to break in. No matter you get drafted or not, it's hard to break in.
And sometimes we don't realize how special it is until we're done with it. And then we look back and go, whoa.
Wish I could do that again.
I would love.
Yeah.
And we talk to guys all the time. You talk to Brian Keel, and he would say, hey, NFL was great, but man, my time at BYU, like all of these guys, when they look back, even that have had great success in the NFL and in the NBA, cherish that time, and I think we cherish it more when we're gone from it, right? And so, yeah, I'm with you. I feel like if he's not a first rounder, he ought to come back. And we're going to talk about Brother Cusick here and see if he can help us figure out how to get some money to these guys so that they can come back, right?
Hey, Mark, the top 5 arenas to call a game in the Big 12. What do you got for us?
Well, Kansas is far and away the winner. It was a majestic, surreal, out-of-body experience. It was everything I dreamed about and more. And then to win that game was just absolutely remarkable. I love that. I can tell you my least favorite was Oklahoma. I thought I was not impressed, and it was not a lot of fan support there for that one. I actually
let's just kick him out of the league then. Let's just kick him out of the league.
Kick him out.
Kick him out. Get rid of him next year then, okay?
Listen, they didn't bring it. We're done. I actually liked Oklahoma State's quite a bit. It was so unique. They built It had great history from I don't know, Greg knows, 1938 or something. And then they built a new arena around the existing arena, and it's connected to the football stadium. And you can kind of look in the football stadium from one section, and then look in the basketball arena. So that was really cool. I like that. I love Baylor's new gym. Maybe that's number 3. I thought that was nice and a tough place to play. I even liked West Virginia, and that was an old school building, but it was like this massive
So cool.
concrete structure that just was looming in the hills of West Virginia, and it had this spacious interior that's defied all the laws of engineering.
Hey,
That was
plus
pretty cool.
it had it's got the Jerry West statue.
That's
I saw
right.
that back there for baseball last week. All right, so who's number 5?
Man, did we even go?
Did
so
he
who else
mention-
did we
did-
play?
did
You go.
He
You said
had-
Kansas, Oklahoma State, Baylor, West Virginia were your first 4.
See, he didn't go to Hilton.
I guess Texas Tech.
Texas Tech,
I like
yeah.
I like any arena where they shoot guns, shoot muskets, and their whole thing is pointing guns at you. They're all like 20,000 people.
Guns
I
up.
mean, any school that can still get away with that, I love it.
He does.
All right, Greg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because he didn't end up at Ames this year, he didn't do that game.
Oh, that's right.
I think Hilton would have made his list.
He had some lawyering stuff to do.
We did a game at Hilton 12 years ago, I think, and so he remembers what it was like. I'm going to go, obviously, Allen Fieldhouse, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 will be Hilton for me. Number 3 will be West Virginia, WVU Coliseum. Number 4 will be Baylor, new building, but they did it right. It's awesome. They're right up on top of you.
The TV angles were jacked, but did
Because
it feel
the
good?
television platforms are too high.
I don't know how much they can fix that, but it looks weird.
It was
But
cool to be in.
it's steep, and that it does portray the steepness of the
Yeah.
building. And then
Yeah.
Texas Tech
Is also your 5.
United Supermarkets because they draw really well, and that was a whole, like Texas Tech. Their crowd helped to win that game for the Red Raiders against BYU that day. So I think for year 1, those are my top 5.
Kansas,
But
Iowa State, West Virginia, Baylor, Texas Tech. So you guys are pretty
Yeah.
close, except for Mark didn't go to Iowa
well,
State.
he had Gallagher-Iba, and I would have put Gallagher-Iba like 6th, right? Because that's a historic building and a great venue.
So let me ask you both this: like, where does
And
BYU?
Oklahoma was last.
Where
again
does the
for me, too.
Marriott Center fit into this list? Where does that fit?
I mean, to me, it's like Allen Fieldhouse is, I think, everyone's number 1, but there will be a few schools competing for number 2, and BYU will be one of those schools competing for number 2.
So BYU right there with Iowa State.
I think it'd be tough to talk to a visiting team that came in and didn't think that BYU's game night experience didn't rival anything else in this league.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting in football? We talk about, well, you got to go play at Texas and you got to play at Oklahoma. That doesn't even make the top 6 in basketball for either of you.
Yeah, we went to Oklahoma. It wasn't a great environment that night. Not a lot of a crowd, and BYU didn't play great. But then again, neither did Oklahoma. It's just kind of a blah game. Yeah. We didn't go to Texas this year, and we won't go to Texas. But the buildings we went to, I mean, I just loved every one of them in their own ways. Again, Oklahoma falls a little bit, but the rest were unbelievable.
Well, the high school gyms really cleansed the palate.
You want to go back to the hilltop in
Cleanse the
San
palate
Francisco in
for
front of
what you
800
have.
screaming fans again.
And it's one thing to have a bigger building, but to fill it with the 10 to 15 to 16,000 fans, which we saw night to night, meant a lot. It's a great basketball league. It is
Fans
such
care
a
about
good
their league.
basketball
They
league.
care about their teams.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's finish with a bonus question. And thank you both for spending some time
Yes,
with
we
us
appreciate it.
here on the big week. Best food. Where was the best food in the Big 12? Don't just say
It doesn't.
Kansas
Yeah, and
barbecue.
we're not talking
Mark.
about the best food in an arena. We're talking about the best food in a place.
Well, we got recency bias going on. We were just in the home of barbecue this past week for the Big
Right.
12 tournament, but I'll be interested to see what Mark has to say because we eat, but we're not one of those guys that finds like the coolest
You're not
place
a
in
foodie.
town. No, I mean, we like food. We eat a lot, but we don't. You know, and I'm not a guy that's going to go wait an hour and a half in line for like the hot place.
Right.
I just want to eat, and I want to eat stuff that I like. And so I'm not the most adventurous diner. I like what I like, and Mark knows that. Mark, where do you think we had?
But you did like the barbecue in KC.
Oh yeah, you can. I mean, just this past week, less than a week ago, I had some brisket poutine that was unbelievable.
There you go.
Loved it.
Mark?
It was a meal in of itself.
What do you got, Mark?
I don't know, man. That IHOP after
come
Kansas
on.
game in Lawrence tasted
Come on.
pretty darn good, man.
Let's go.
That was a victory meal.
That was
good.
We
stuff.
ended up in a blizzard.
So you're saying the food is greatly influenced by the performance of the team?
If the game is great, everything tastes better after a win in Allen, right?
Okay, IHOP it is. Greg, what's the travel plans?
Mark will join me on Wednesday. I go out to Omaha tomorrow.
You're heading out tomorrow.
Yeah, and so I'll be there in time to get to their practices on Wednesday morning.
Have either of you heard what kind of crowd BYU fans, are they going to make their way to Omaha? What are you hearing?
I think they'll draw more from there than they will draw people going to Omaha. They just got finished with Kansas City. Omaha's not Salt Lake would have been obviously great for a lot of reasons.
Right.
But, I think they'll do okay. But I think most of what's going to show up for BYU will be fans that are in the vicinity in the Midwest.
Well, guys, enjoy your 18th big dance and come home with some dubs.
And
get some
just so you know,
back there.
Omaha's known for steaks. So go get you a steak in Omaha while you're there. Okay?
You don't have to convince me to go find a steak.
Okay, go get one.
I'm going to a birthday party now for me. My birthday was yesterday.
Happy birthday.
And not one of you got me a present. You're the three richest guys I know.
Don't be surprised when you go to the party that there's stuff there from us.
I shot you a text. I did shoot you a text.
Happy birthday.
You did. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Happy birthday.
Guys, thank you so much for your insights and for the work you do. And best of luck. We'll be listening on Thursday morning at 9:30.
Yeah, you hit the air at 9:30?
9:30 pregame, 10:40 tip.
Yeah, who's got the pregame?
Ben Bagley's got pregame.
Ben's going to do pregame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark, we'll see you in a couple days.
All right, my brother.
Bring your best stuff. Because
I wish
Greg
I could have been there, but my arm needed a break from sitting next to Greg for a night.
Good luck, guys. Yeah.
Have fun. Thanks for being on with us, you guys.
Thank you. Greg Wrubell, Mark Durant, they're off to cover and call BYU's road and trip to the big dance starting Thursday against Duquesne. If they can win that, likely Illinois on Saturday. Maybe Morehead State will show up and shock the Illini, and we shall see. But the games start Thursday. Get your brackets filled out and all of that stuff.
I'm glad BYU doesn't have McNeese State. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think we won in the matchup.
In the first round matchup, it was just fine. So
you're right. You're good with that, Greg?
Yeah, no, McNeese is a handful.
Yes, we're glad we don't
know
have
the AD there is now, right?
That's right.
It's Heath Schroyer.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, our good friend.
I wished he was still the head coach, but now he's his own boss.
He's the AD. Yeah,
So
he's the boss. So.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Hey, our Cougar Board question of the week. If you're not familiar with Cougar Board, it's the largest online community of BYU fans with thousands of posts daily. This comes from Laser Coug, one of their insider subscribers. Thoughts on how long Mark Pope stays at BYU? I think this year has been his best coaching performance, and he'll be rumored in many coaching vacancies. Will BYU do what it takes to keep him? If Kentucky calls, is he definitely gone? By the way, Kentucky's not open with Calipari there, and it doesn't appear he's going anywhere. Louisville is open, Kentucky's rival. What do you think, Blaine?
So I have had a couple of conversations with Mark about this very thing, and Mark's very appreciative of what he has at BYU, about the fan base, the arena, the fact that they're a P5 program now. They did get some increases for him and his assistants when they came into the Big 12. There's money there to support it. So I will say this, it will have to be a really, really attractive thing to get Mark to go. So when you say when Kentucky calls, so if Calipari decides to hang it up and that's open.
You take that call?
Yeah, I think you take that call and listen. And I think that would be a big draw for Mark. But outside of that, I don't think there's a lot of jobs that Mark's just chomping at the bit to get to.
Coaches like to win.
He's been really, I've had a couple of in-depth conversations with him about this, and he'll continually point out to me all the good things there are about this program, and feels like they can win here. Remember, he's got Colin Chandler coming back next year, and Greg just talked about
most of your team back.
You have almost everybody back, even without Jax coming back. But what if Jackson comes back next year, and you keep most of this team intact, and you add Colin Chandler and
winning makes life easier,
Yeah.
and the jobs that are open because there wasn't enough winning.
And
so
not enough winning
be
in
careful.
Kentucky is a really fine margin, right? They
But they're not even
gotta
in play.
You have to be Final Four at Kentucky, or they have all kinds of pressure on you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of jobs out there, and there'll be a lot of openings. And
his name.
But you got to be careful.
His name, rightfully so, will get mentioned because he's one of the hottest commodities in college basketball. Washington was an interesting thought because he did play at Washington, where he has significant ties. That would be interesting, especially if they doubled or tripled.
Yeah, I think
his income.
after next season he becomes becomes hotter.
He's even hotter because who wouldn't want to come back and coach that group next year?
Right.
I do. I want to.
There's a really good chance you're going to look good.
And believe me, and Mark says it a lot, but when I've talked with him, he's even emphasized it more, how many good things he has at BYU and how much he appreciates the fan base and what he has here. So I don't think he's in a hurry to go anywhere.
All right, there's the question. Thank you. Let's bring our man in, and as Craig gets set. Women's basketball, by the way, 16-16. That's how they finished, but they're not done. BYU will play Santa Clara Thursday, the first round of the WBIT, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on BYU Radio with Jason Shepard. The WBIT is a new tournament that's owned by the NCAA. This is a level below the NCAA tournament and above the WNIT. And so BYU will play Santa Clara on Thursday. And we wish Amber Whiting and the Cougars the best.
Somebody last week, remember Dave said, I thought it was taken to replace it. And I said, now I was really confused and second guessing myself, but it is a new tournament. It doesn't replace the WNIT.
Like 100 teams now go play in the postseason.
And so, you know what? With this young guard line for these this women's basketball team, I think it's a great opportunity to keep playing and to get more experience.
And hopefully Kaylee Woolston's healthy enough to get playing. Our next guest played for BYU in the 2012 NCAA tournament, was part of the greatest comeback in the history of the Big Dance, also on the board of directors of the Royal Blue Collective, helping the Cougars stay competitive in the ever-changing world of college sports. We welcome Craig Cusick to the Wise Guys.
This is my guy right here.
Hey, we've been working for months to make this happen. Thanks for being here. This is awesome.
Let's go. Sorry for being so difficult.
No, you're not.
Hey, busy people have busy lives. You know, when you're running businesses all over the place and all this stuff, you can only come when you can come.
Look, let's jump right into the deep questions here. What was it like to join the BYU program as a guard the year after Jimmermania?
Yeah, so funny enough, Dave, so my sophomore year was actually Jimmer's senior year. So I was on Jimmer's and that Sweet 16 team. I was on the practice squad.
The practice squad.
Yeah, that year. So
we checked the stats. I didn't see any stats.
I didn't know that.
Listen, but Coach Rose was good enough to give me a ring, for all that hard work at practice.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Jimmer, Jackson, Brandon, all of you, for the ring. But no, I didn't play, but I was on the practice squad. That was my sophomore year. So then, I played 2 years.
So do you get to guard Jimmer a bunch on the practice squad?
Yeah, you try, a little bit.
Everybody
tried. Work, absolutely.
Everybody.
But what a fun year.
Did they let you dress for games? Were you on the bench dressed, or were you in street clothes?
No, back then on the practice squad, most of the time, depending on the games. Home games, sometimes we would dress just in street clothes or church clothes. There's a couple of road games I traveled to, but no, I didn't.
Hey, so still this question still stands. Now you're on the court
just had
as a player the year after Jimmer, and now you got the ball.
Right.
There's a little pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. And, for me, the thing about it was, and those who knew my background, I obviously walked on my sophomore year, made the practice squad. And you're green squad. You're the scout team for that full year. So how fun was that to be the scout team for that full year? And the next season was my junior year, as you just said, Dave. And, for me, the expectations, I was chasing a dream. I had gone through a big injury from the year before at Slick when I was playing at Salt Lake Community College. I didn't know if I was going to play again because I restructured my ankle.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I was out there, was fighting for every minute, right? And once the chance opened up my junior season to get a minute here or there, you take advantage of those 60 seconds, those 2 minutes, those 5 minutes. And fortunately, it worked out in a very positive way pretty quickly my junior year.
Yeah.
But it was fun to follow up that year, certainly.
Yeah, we want to take you back in history. We're going to talk about the tournament, this year's tournament, but we're going to take you back to Tuesday night, February 19th, 2013. Dave and I are calling this game. Utah State at the Marriott Center. You hit the game-winning shot. Time expires as you hit the shot, 70-68. So walk us through that moment. We called it, but we want to hear what it was like for you.
Yeah, pretty crazy. The fact that Coach Rose kept me in the game, for me, as I look back, is still, it doesn't make sense to me because I didn't have a good game. Anyone who watched the full game, I think I was 0 for 7 up until that point. And for good reason, I was in a funk. I wasn't there and going through some personal stuff with my dad.
Right.
But I remember the play. We called timeout. And I remember the play with Maddie at top. And we had this play to move the ball around a couple seconds. And it was either Maddie was going to get a shot, Carlino, at the top. If the wing committed to Matt, he was going to kick it to me, and I was going to have a shot. If I didn't have a shot, I might kick it one more. But once I saw Matt sling that thing up, went into the middle of the key, ball bounced my way. You would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
You would have done the same thing.
I don't know.
Yeah. You know, a little 5-foot floater in the key.
I think all I remember saying is
it was
Cusick with the follow, and then the place went nuts.
There you go. It was honestly a special experience. Like it's definitely a highlight for me, right? In a memory that coincides with one of the most difficult things that I ever had in my life to go through. That same day, from a sports standpoint, maybe the highlight, for a personal highlight for me. That's for sure.
For folks who may not be aware, that day your dad Randy's in the hospital, just diagnosed with cancer. So the family's dealing with that. You hit the shot, then you go over to the hospital. I mean, what a moment.
It's exactly right. And that day I was back and forth to the hospital because my dad had collapsed the night before, and it was after shoot around, back to the hospital. And it was about maybe an hour before the game when they diagnosed him with pancreatic cancer. So that's when we found out. And my dad, anyone that knows my dad, game on. There's no chance I'm not playing. There's no chance. It's, staying in the hospital was the last thing I was going to be able to do. It was get out to the court, right? And he had the TV on in the hospital bed.
A highlight for him too, a highlight for you, obviously, but a cool highlight for your dad, who I'm sure appreciated that very much.
So what was it like when you walked into the room after the game? The tender mercy of when it just happened.
I'll never forget it. My dad is a very loving, soft-spoken man. For those that know him inside, he's very rough, strong, and tough on the outside. Yeah. But anyone that knows him, very soft. I remember walking in there after the game with my family as well, and I mean, it was a full embrace, and both kind of in tears for what just happened, because I didn't know if I was going to play, and it was very clear I was going to play, and it turned out to be a special moment. And all the support after that night that we got. My dad is the last person that wants any attention, but the support that my family got, that I got, that he got, the thoughts, the prayers, all the messages, it was incredibly powerful. So for the whole family, it was pretty special.
Does a day go by when you don't think of that ball leaving your hands and going into the basket?
I just wish I would have dunked it. You know what I'm saying?
You were too far out. You couldn't dunk. Plus, there wouldn't have been time.
There would have been time. No, there's very few days that go by when I don't think about my experience at BYU, the relationships I made, and the people that have impacted my life. No question.
Yeah. Hey, former Cougar Craig Cusick's with us on the Wise Guys tonight. Played in 171 games at BYU. That's crazy.
I didn't know that.
171 games at BYU. Started 15, finished with 247 points. Left your name.
That's not enough.
Left a mark. 171 games. Like I thought about that. I thought that's pretty cool considering where you started.
Yeah.
It might have been 71.
Junior college and then the practice squad play. Yeah.
I might have written that wrong. It might have been 71 games because it was 2 years.
Was it 71? Because I was reading it earlier.
It might have been 71.
Oh, but even 71. I'm taking 71.
I was at the U my freshman year. So my freshman year, I redshirted at the U.
And then done over to Slick
after the mission.
It had to be 71.
Yeah, 71 games.
But still, 71 games. It seems like a lot to me. So I'm taking it back because you were part of a couple of crazy that win with the last second shot. Now we're taking you back the year before. You're in the first 4 playing game. It's in Omaha, right?
Was it Omaha or Dayton?
It was in Dayton.
The year before it was in Dayton.
Okay.
Yep.
So Iona goes up 25 at halftime. We're all like, there's no way in the world. There's no way in the world. You come back to win 78-72, the biggest comeback in the history of the NCAA tournament. What was that like?
We were horrible in the first half.
Yes, you were.
I could be wrong, but I think it was probably about midway, 3/4 of the way through the first half when we were down 25. We ended the first half on maybe, I think, a small little run at the end of the first half. I can't remember, but maybe down 19, give or take a few points at halftime. And for me, for whatever reason, I was fortunate to play the second half along with many others, but that was a special experience, right? And everything that couldn't go right in the first half went right in the second half. And when you have Noah Hardsock that is absolutely nails.
Noah's just on with us a week or two ago,
and you have Brock Zylstra, and we had other guys who stepped up. And me, who stepped up, was the good 0 points, and
but 0 points.
Hang on, there's more.
Yeah, 0 points, 5 boards, and 8 assists.
There we go. We'll take it.
Sometimes you don't have to score to have a major contribution.
And everyone had to do something.
Yeah, it felt like everybody had to contribute in some way, especially in that second half, right?
Yeah, it was incredible. And it was, I remember just like the feelings in the locker room when we all sat and looked at each other. This is our shot. This is our shot in the NCAA tournament. What are we going to do with it? And when we came out in that second half, everything couldn't be more different. And everyone delivered. Everyone played their role. And I think we ended up winning by 6, right? So not alone the comeback, I think we ended up winning by 6 or so.
78-72.
Yeah. Unbelievable game.
Crazy.
2 days later, you take the floor in the first round against Marquette on CBS. So tell us, describe the feeling for a player to run out of the locker room and start warming up in the big dance.
It's you can't explain it. The only way that I would maybe, for anyone that's played sports, you get amped for special games, right? When you go to Utah and you play Utah, you get amped. Mm-hmm. Like this year, I mean, I could pull up the film right now. I can almost guarantee you maybe the first 5 shots were long off the backboard or long off the back of the rim, because that's just how it is. Yeah. March Madness is times another 4, right? You're amped on another level. You realize this might be your only chance in your life to play in this event, to play in this tournament where dreams are made of as a young boy. And so that opportunity to go against Marquette, let alone the first game against Iona, second game versus Marquette, Jay Crowder, Johnson Odom, Vanderblue, a lot of these dudes played in the NBA, have had stints in the NBA or professionally for a long time. It just was you can't explain it. It's a whole nother level. The quicker you can come into a reality of, all right, this is just a game, and I'm going to give everything I have, you settle in, you play basketball.
We want you to compare for us, because you played in that environment, and then that next year you play in the NIT, but you go all the way to the Final Four. Yep. So you're playing in Madison Square Garden. Dave, you went back and covered that back there for BYU TV. Do they compare? Does the Final Four of the NIT in Madison Square Garden compare to an NCAA, or is it not the same?
It's not the same. Now, I will say that Final Four run senior year, under the circumstances, when you don't make the NCAA tournament, you're a bubble team. My junior year, we felt the experience of getting in to a playing game. My senior year, we felt the experience of not getting in and going to NIT, but being I think we were a 2 seed. We were either a 1 or 2 seed. Yeah, I think in the NIT. And I remember the Southern Miss game at Southern Miss, which was I think our 3rd game in the NIT that was going to send us to Madison Square Garden. My guy Brock Zylstra went for like 7 or 8 threes.
That's right.
And when that locker room was so much fun. You know, you're seniors. You don't want your year to end. So in that aspect, it was amazing. But nothing compares to March Madness, right? It's its own
thing. Former BYU guard Craig Cusick on the Wise Guys tonight. A star at Orem High School just up the road, Salt Lake Community College, before arriving at BYU. This Thursday, BYU opens the big dance against Duquesne at 10:40 a.m. Mountain Time on True TV and BYU Radio. We had Greg Wrubell and Mark Durant on earlier tonight. What do you think of this matchup?
I love it. There's so much talk, and I was listening to the show earlier before I jumped on, but I know there's so much talk about what's going to happen. For me, it comes down to I'm on the side of, you look at the draw, every team in this tournament is phenomenal, and any team can beat any other team. And that's what I love about it, is that this draw, I think, let's make the most of it. And I actually love it. When I look at some of the 5 seeds, when I look at some of the 4 seeds, and yes, should we maybe have been a better seed? Probably, yes. I agree, 100%. But when I look at the actual draws, the teams, the matchups, the opportunities that we have ahead of us, I don't know if I'd choose anything else, right? Where the current 5 seeds are, 4 seeds. So
I would take Duquesne over McNeese.
Yes,
in a heartbeat.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't know anything about either one of them.
I mean, basically, it's been kind of documented now. It's Gonzaga took BYU seed because of the Saturday or the Friday Sunday thing. I would much rather play BYU's first round opponent, and that's not disrespecting Duquesne. Because BYU's going to play well. They are really good defensively, and they can beat you. And they're coming in as hot as anybody in the country. But McNeese is having a special year.
Yeah,
and it's like I think I'd be okay being a 5 or being a 6 and not being in that game against those guys. They could be a Cinderella this year.
Yeah. So what are the most important things for a team to do to win and advance in this setting? What does BYU have to do on Thursday?
For me, when I think about the games ahead, and when I think about Duquesne, but also potentially an Illinois matchup if they can win their first game, you you can control what you can control, right? So for me, like, the shots are going to start falling at some point. But for me, when I've watched this season, even in games where we didn't shoot lights out, we shot low 30s% to mid 30s, not high 30s. Our defense has been stellar at different moments throughout this year, which is much more what you can control. When I think about our defense, when I think about our rebounding, we've all seen stints this year where this team just excels at both of those areas that are much more in your control than sometimes shots going in or out, right? They're going to come, right? Because we got a lot of great shooters. But for me, I think if we can be disciplined, run our offense, right, get some good baskets, right, get some good looks at the rim, it's going to open the floor up. We're going to get some inside-out shots, and the threes are going to fall. So anyway, I'd say in summary, Dave, like when I think about what it's going to take to win, especially against this first team, Duquesne, but also potentially Illinois, I think if we can come out with the defense that we've seen at a few different times this season, that's stellar. They already struggle offensively, right? That's not their strength, right? I think we don't have to shoot high 30% to win. I think we got to go shoot low to mid 30s%.
So the defense we played against Baylor.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you feel like this defense doesn't get? I mean, the offense gets so much talk. Is this defense underrated? Are they better than people think they are defensively? BYU?
I think so. Yeah, and we'd have to go back to Greg Wrubell to pull all the metrics, but when I watch BYU, there is, 3/4 of games this year, they've been stellar at defense, and it's not easy to get buckets on this team, right? Yeah. They make the right moves, the right helps, and they play hard, and they've got 9 guys to play hard. Most teams have 6, 7 guys to play hard. We've got a good 8, 9 guys, right, in that rotation, right? So energy goes a long way.
Let's go futuristic here with Craig Cusick on the Wise Guys tonight. You served a Latter-day Saint mission to London, England a few years back. Colin Chandler's just finishing up his mission to London, England. He's going to join the team when he gets back. How long do you think it'll take him to get up to game speed after 2 years away from basketball? Because you went through that and all.
Yeah, well, Colin's a much better athlete than I ever was.
2 years is still 2 years.
But 2 years is 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think for anybody, you got to give yourself a good 6 months before you're going again. And that's with a lot of hard work. I tried to go a lot faster than that. And I think that's one of the reasons I had multiple injuries at Slick. I had a few months before I started playing full speed.
Fast. Like how much time did you have between when you got back and when you were trying to play full speed?
I got home in late May. And then I was playing, once the school began, I was going full steam.
So you 3 months in,
3
you're
months,
playing.
let's say 3 months. But even before that, workouts, all of it, I was going as hard as I could. Tore my hammy, ended up breaking those are the type of injuries that come with that type of thing. But look, Colin's, I'm sure he's been working out. I'm sure he's been exercising. The dude's a freak. And
he's
excited to have
that same timetable.
I'm trying to remember. We've said this before. I think he's the highest rated recruit since Danny Ainge, isn't he?
Maybe even before Ainge.
Yeah,
we're right up there.
Yeah, it's up there. So,
but
we'll see.
The mean streets of London. We'll see. We'll see how they did him. But you've experienced that, and maybe it's different coming back from a London place as opposed to other places around the world where the food, the culture, and everything's just so different.
For sure. Yeah, I think, and I don't know though.
Yeah.
I think that mission is tough on everybody, right?
I know it took me a while to get my legs back.
You're just not playing 5-on-5, at altitude, running with guys and the physicality that exists. I go to these games and I'm like, gosh, everything just looks like it hurts. I can't, you go hard in the off season. You go harder than in season sometimes. A lot of
folks think he's going to come home with the S and the cape. And how realistic is it for his first year, 5 months removed from a mission, when we see him at the Marriott Center to be where he wants to be?
I think Colin will contribute his freshman year in a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he, just because there's aspects to his game, his size, his athleticism, that you give it, if he phases into it the right way, he can still get that 6 months in before the actual season starts. But you just got to be maybe a bit more thoughtful probably those first few months when the school starts and
patient.
And pace yourself.
Right? Yeah.
Whereas, I maybe gave myself 2 months and
you wanted to go.
And it's the nice part. I wasn't smart about it. Nice part for Colin is that he comes back, and even though he's got the potential to be a superstar, there's a ton of talent that's going to be around him, and talent wants to play with talent, right?
Yes,
And so
100%.
that is a big advantage for him, that he doesn't have to carry it immediately.
100%. He's not like, look, he's going to fit right in. He's going to be awesome. But you're right. It's like when you got other guys that have played so many substantial minutes, games, W's, tournament experience. Then you got Dawson Baker, who's going to come back again healthy. And then you got hopefully all these guys that will come back. I mean, you slide in and you take your moments and deliver, and you phase into the program, and he'll get up to speed. I'm excited to have him. He's a great kid.
You gotta have him, right? At BYU, you have to have, or you really need to have the best Latter-day Saint talent in the world.
100%.
Starting
And
there.
he's that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, let's talk off the court a little bit. Off the court, off the field. You're invested in BYU Sports as a member of the board of directors of the Royal Blue Collective that helps Cougars compete in the world of NIL. Tell us a little bit about how all that's going and how that's set up and what your role is.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, man, is it probably about a couple years ago now, when this thing first started, there was a couple different groups who were trying to organize something. Right. And what we saw is the NIL landscape, many of the major universities, Division I programs started to establish you have to be a third party from the university for obvious reasons, right? Because the universities can't pay these kids. So we are a third party. But you started to see the world of most universities had one specific athletic collective, right? Where most funds, not all, where most funds would go to, but it didn't exist. And so, different people were in my ear about potentially trying to help contribute. And I'm probably too passionate about this university and Coach Pope and my experience at BYU that it was the least that I could do is to try to lean in as a volunteer and to help out. And it's just like any startup. It's taken 2 years and we're not where we want to be yet, but we've made some huge progress. And I'll just tell you, I think we're going to turn the corner here. And what BYU and athletics and NIL and the opportunities that players are going to have, athletes are going to have at BYU, we have a vision. And both from a fund standpoint, financially, but more importantly, about the whole athlete experience, what we call the whole athlete, which is, look, you and I, anyone that knows BYU, yes, we need to provide the right financial opportunities because these are semi-pro athletes now, whether people like it or not, that is what they are. Yeah. So they deserve, right? But beyond that, the mentorship, the development, the network, the alumni base that we all have, we talk about it. But when I think about our mission at the Royal Blue, it really comes down to how do we activate that and intertwine that to the athlete experience? Because when we do that and we have successful businessmen and the network come together to deliver team level initiatives, individual level NIL opportunities for players and athletes, that's what lights the fire. And I think we have an interesting value prop, right, for athletes around the country.
It doesn't seem to me, and we get around and cover a lot all over the country, that very few, if I don't know of any actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking very few are talking the way you guys are talking. Nobody's talking the way you guys are talking about mentoring, teaching these kids how to network, helping them start businesses, role modeling, all of these things. It feels like to me that the Royal Blue Collective, BYU's whole NIL program is more long-term focused and not just, hey, let's get $250,000 in your pocket, so you got to come here. It's just so much more than that. Is your experience that it's completely unique, this idea and this concept? And am I describing it right?
I think you are. I would say it's what we're trying to add is the and portion to the athlete. The financial piece needs to be there. Right. And that's like, there's a call to action for all Cougar fans. Like, if we want successful sports programs and you want to know how to contribute and get it, like, go to the website. There's opportunities to donate. This is what's going to drive the success of our sports team. So let's not be naive. Like, the financial has to be there.
It has to be there.
But we are emphasizing, right, in addition to that, it's got to be so much more. Because the value of what we can offer if we do it correctly. And we've seen it. We've seen amazing things start to happen right across different teams, and we've made tremendous progress. So it's been pretty fun and special to see how these athletes are going to start to, the experience that they're going to have. Right?
Gary Bohannon was here with us a few weeks ago, and he said that, and he'd been around, right? He'd been recruited all over the place. And he said that the NIL experience with the Royal Blue was completely different from anything he'd experienced, and exactly how he thought it should go. And he was totally impressed. And Connor Pay on the other day, same thing. Chase Roberts, the same thing. The long-term view, while the kid wants a bag of money, the long-term view wins the parents over, right? Because they're invested in their life. And so many schools are just, I got bags of money for everybody. But as we've heard from players, they want the long-term view because football can end on a twisted knee in 5 minutes.
Yeah, imagine you presenting an opportunity to a player or to a team-wide NIL opportunity that was structured in a way where it was like, no, first off, here's the list of 5 things, athlete or athletes, that we want you to do on behalf of this business or the collective, right? They immediately are getting this career professional experience while they're an athlete with some of these business owners, et cetera, that is unique, right? So they're actually delivering, they're learning how to be a professional, they're learning business, while they're having the opportunity to make amazing money.
And money's there, right?
And money, it's not that money's not there, money is there and it's growing, but you combine that with, okay, now that you have those funds, let's tie you to a financial advisor who's going to help you set up investment accounts with that money, right? Help you leave college with a down payment on a house, right? Or something that will change your life, not a new G-Wagon, right, when you get the check. So that's it's a totally different mentality, and we're making a lot of progress.
And I love that you say that's an and proposition. But to keep things in perspective, it's not going to be an and proposition, hey, Miami and the University of Florida, we're going to give you $1.6 million high school quarterback coming out of Indiana. No, we're going to give you $1.8 million. Like, we don't want to get into that kind of bidding war, right? But we want to have what's fair and equitable and have these kids make a good living and compete. But I don't know that Kalani or Mark really want to be in that, hey, let's get in a $1.5 million bidding war for a premier player, right?
No, we're not trying to get into the bidding wars. No. But we are trying to be a top national program in NIL. Right. So that's what I don't want to confuse. Right. There's different ways to structure and to approach NIL. Some teams will give it all to one player. Other universities will structure team-wide deals, tiered systems, right? Where players at different levels maybe are different tiers. There's all a much more team-based approach, cultural approach, right? And these are the things that you think through as you get involved here on how do we create the right culture internally at BYU that aligns with the BYU values, the morals of BYU. And so agreed with you. Like we're not trying to go to the top bidders, but we're building a fund that will be able to compete at a national level.
You make a great point about culture, because this is one of the reasons I think that to Nick Saban's just like, I'm out.
Yep.
You go give a high school quarterback $1.5 million, and he's never played it down. And I think it's the most difficult position in any sport to project from high school to college. He may not be good. BYU's had number 1 overall recruits in the country that haven't panned out at that position, right? And it changes the dynamic of the team. You got like veterans that have been at wide receivers. They're going to make that guy look good. That are going, wait a minute, you're giving that kid $1.5 million. The way you're talking about structuring this thing helps avoid those inter team problems with culture, right?
Absolutely, that's the goal, right? And this is partly like the whole mission of the collective. We are all aligned to BYU standards. And as much as you can, we make decisions that we believe would align with BYU, right? Even though we're a complete third party of BYU, and we have to be, and we will continue to be. But you're spot on. I think the one other aspect I'll just call out here is beyond the athlete experience, trying to also make sure that the donor experience is also phenomenal, right? And done the right way. These aren't just, hey, give us a check, and then you never see it again. It's if someone's going to donate money to the collective that's going to go reach these BYU athletes, how do we make sure that we craft together deliverables that maybe it's for your charity, right? For the donor, the charity, or maybe it's for your business, or we want these athletes involved in the deliverables, right? Not just collecting
value on both sides,
and making sure these donors are hand in hand, because that's the whole thing that ignites. The thing that changed my life was my relationships at BYU. Changed my life as a walk-on basketball player. Never had a scholarship. Changed my life because of the coaches I had, the teammates I had, and the other relationships I had. And even if NIL existed back when I played, I wouldn't have made anything, which is totally fine. But it's I feel like I can contribute a little bit, and so it's been fun to lean in and help out where I can.
Jimmer might have made a couple bucks.
Oh, Jimmer would have been. He may be the all-time NIL king.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Craig Cusick is with us. One last question on this, and then we'll hit you with 5 and get you out of the door. But thank you so much for joining the Wise Guys tonight. And let's revisit a thing you talked about just a moment ago. How can viewers and listeners of the Wise Guys, our podcast, and everybody that's on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and that goes to wiseguys.com, how can they get involved in the Royal Blue?
There's a lot of ways. So here's what I'd say. Number one, we have a lot of businesses, corporations that want to get involved. For those, right, please go to our website, royalbluecollective.com. In fact, our website is changing here in about 2 weeks to the royalblue.co. But follow us on Twitter. All this news will come out. You can work direct with us as a business and a corporation to help craft deliverable opportunities for any athlete at BYU. Team approach, if there's individuals specifically that you want to get involved with, we'll help logistically monitor that, right? And help execute on that, on the deliverables front. So for corporations, for businesses, that's a big way that we've raised funds so far. The other way is for personals, right? And for fans. In about 2 weeks, you're going to see our fan box that's going to become live, which is an annual subscription. One of the big things these big universities are doing in the SEC, et cetera, that are raising millions and millions of dollars every year, they have a large fan base that are, you get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 fans to donate $10, $50, $100 a month, whatever it might be.
That adds up, yeah.
It adds up, and it's recurring, and it's a model that will change the landscape for BYU sports. So we've got some really interesting things coming. Next couple weeks, check out the fan box and subscriptions that will be available. And depending on a person's needs or wants or desires, there will be different levels of subscriptions that would go a long way.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. Great
Well, we understand how important it is. And Mark Comer's been on with us a couple of times, and the players that the collective sends over, we give them an opportunity to say, hey, what's working for you about this? Because the testimonials from the guys and the people who are doing it are important for the folks listening going, should I get involved with that or should I not? Or should I wait for someone else to do it? But $10, I think you can get a lot of people in. I get $10 and be in the group? Count me in. So,
he'll give more than that.
Big time. Well, just the nickel and dime idea that you were talking about, it makes a difference. Yeah. And everyone can give 5 or 10, and then of course someone wants to give $1 million. I think you take that.
We will accept very quickly.
So
where do we sign?
It's a big run the gamut with all that stuff. But again, it's needed, and we're 2 years into the NIL world, and it sounds like you're making a lot of progress.
We certainly are. Yeah. If I would have told you the way I'd frame it is where we're at today. If I would have told you that 2 years ago we'd be here, I'd say we've over exceeded. Now we're not where we need to be. That's where it's Cougar Nation. It's we got to go double where we're at, right? And at that point, we'll be a top collective in the country, right? Top 10.
There you go. That's what it takes.
Are you ready? You ready for 5 questions?
5 questions.
Let's go. Anything.
Yeah. So this is off the top of your head. I want you to think about this a lot. Just bam, whatever comes to your head.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Your favorite sports movie?
Oh man, Happy Gilmore. There you go. That was too fast. That was the childhood.
That's our first Happy Gilmore.
Hey,
it's a classic.
You just said whatever comes in my head
that
first.
That is one of my favorites of all time. That just memories just blew into my head just now from Happy Gilmore.
The honesty's pouring out.
I love it. I'm writing that down. Happy Gilmore. That's our first Happy Gilmore. A lot of remember the Titans and Hoosiers, but I'll take Happy Gilmore all day long. You know what I just figured out the other day from Happy Gilmore? The one that kind of manages the tour, she's like on, it's Julie Bowen.
Who's this?
Julie
from Modern Family?
She's from Modern Family. She's in that.
She's in Happy Gilmore?
Yeah, I'm like, she's like young. It's crazy. So, anyhow, favorite singer or band?
Oh, Garth Brooks.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
That was just too easy.
There we go.
At Hartsock, we'd say, hey, Noah, we're
what's
only
your favorite,
a 2-hour
what's
show.
your favorite girl?
What did Noah say?
Oh my gosh!
Well,
it's this thing. It's this.
My
it's
sister.
Like, come on. Favorite Garth Brooks song though?
Oh man, there's too many.
You know, my favorite one is a simple one. It's Here's Your Mom. You know the one he does about your mom.
Yeah, I do love that.
Yeah,
I'll go with that one as well.
it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Oh man, this is where this is the tough one. Cinnamon checks, though, would be my number one.
I haven't had those.
Cinnamon checks.
Cinnamon
they still make
checks?
those? Okay.
What?
I want you to know that we had a
No. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is a little too much. The cinnamon checks, the texture.
It's just the right amount?
Yeah, just the right amount.
There's a little more air in them.
Yeah, a little more air. Give it
I'll have you know that we had a little production meeting and business meeting before.
Cinnamon Life we were eating over
and
there.
Steve brought us in Cinnamon Life, and that we sat
I
and
love
ate
Cinnamon
Cinnamon Life,
Yeah.
but as you know, before we had our meeting.
While we talked about life.
Yeah, we talked about
Ate
life.
Cinnamon
We
Life.
ate Cinnamon Life. There's nothing better. And I will tell you that
backup.
Dave and I made a good choice and had 2% milk, even though we don't have to drink skim or 2%. We could drink regular milk.
We just got 2% skip
so- What's that
I thought you
reference
guys
from?
were soy guys.
That
I thought you
reference
were-
is from,
I thought you were
that
soy.
reference is from Napoleon
Come on.
Dynamite. Are you drinking skim milk because you think you're fat? Because you could drink whole milk.
That's right.
So, okay. Your favorite thing about your wife, Sadie?
Oh man, she is the most thoughtful person you'll ever meet. So she, that's my favorite. One of my favorite characteristics about her. Whether she knows you very, very well or if she's met you once, she's very thoughtful, and she'll find ways to make sure that you know that. Just when you don't think that she knows you, she knows you. She'll do something nice for you. She'll send you a text. She'll do something that.
That's great.
She's very thoughtful.
That's a great quality.
Awesome.
Okay, this is a tough one. The favorite advice from your dad. We talked about your dad's cancer, and he passed away in 2014. What's the best advice your dad ever gave you?
Here's if there's anything that sticks out, my dad, we actually all have little sayings in our rooms, probably, or different places in our house. My dad always said toughen up. That was the phrase growing up, that if there's any phrase that I remember, toughen up was that.
Toughen up.
And that was my dad. And I think when I think of my family and what my dad taught us, not that I'm tough, but he certainly instilled just this behavior and this attitude, toughen up, and to just take things right for what they are, and to head on, and that's what sticks out to me, because as I go through life, every day I have to toughen up.
Yeah, a lot of tough things come at you.
That's exactly right.
See, growing up in a football family, it was like, hey, you know what? Get a helmet on. Life's tough.
That's right.
So get a helmet on.
It's interesting. All three of us have lost a parent way early than we ever had hoped, and it is with you every single day, like all the time. Yeah. And so when we're thinking of your favorite advice from your dad, for the next, I don't know, a couple of hours, you'll think of a million things, because it's all right there in our minds. And thank goodness we have it, but it changes us, doesn't it?
It really does. And there's thousands of things I could have said to that answer, right? Yeah. But I, he just was one that always helped me get through things.
Yeah.
And that's who he was. Never complain. Never a complaint. You go head on and you go take it on. And so anyway, that stands out for me when I think of my dad.
That's awesome.
I love it.
The great Craig Cusick. Enjoy the big dance this week. And when the Cougars take the floor, you can say, been there, done that.
Oh, I will be there. If I have to ride my
Are you
bike,
going?
I will be. Oh, yes, I will be there. I'm figuring that as we speak.
Awesome.
Who is going to be the player we can look for, the players have to do one game at a time. In that Illinois game on Saturday, see, I'm already going to the Illinois game.
I love it. It'll be Morehead State.
On the missed shot.
No, I don't.
On the missed shot with 4 seconds left that comes off the rim, what BYU player is going to be there for the putback for the win?
Richie Saunders. We all know that.
I thought so
let's go,
too.
Richie.
That's exactly
Let's go,
what I was
Richie.
thinking. Richie Saunders is going to be the
That's
guy.
exactly
He's
right.
going to make the Cusick play.
Oh,
he's going to have a putback, and BYU goes to the Sweet 16.
Next week, we're playing this clip after it happens.
Yes,
on
we'll
the
play
show.
it.
That's exactly right. Please
Richie
do.
Saunders puts it back in, and they go to the Sweet 16.
Safe travels to Omaha. We'll look for you on the TV cutaways.
Please do.
And,
You're going, right?
Yeah. I'll be there.
Okay.
I got to figure out how I'm going to get there. I'm still in process, but I'll be there.
Oh, you'll be there.
We'll let
All
you
right.
go firm up your travel plan. Thank you so much for being here.
Guys, thanks for having me.
We
This
have to
was
call
fun.
it an alumni football game on Friday, or we would be there.
You're
We
not
got
going?
a few things. We got the alumni game.
We have to call
Friday
the
night.
alumni game live and on
I'll
television.
talk to
TV.
those guys, Dave Nix. I'll talk to them. They won't be offended.
Yeah.
Listen, we
You
don't
can miss
expect
the alumni game.
we don't expect 2 halves from Nixon
No,
to begin
Nixon
with.
plays limited plays.
Couple of plays and
He's
he'll be
limited
out.
plays for sure.
Oh,
So.
my
There's a
gosh.
lot going on, but that's one of the great events, the BYU alumni football
Yep.
game, and right inside with the big dance. What a week! What a week!
And we don't
So
get
good.
to like flat out root that often. So now we can just watch these games and just scream and yell and do all that instead of trying to be calm and just talk about it.
I love it.
So
Guys, fun to
Greg.
have me on. Thanks for having me.
thanks
to
so
have you
much.
here.
We love
that was
having
great.
you.
Next week, Dave and Garrett Rose will be here. Holly Hassler, the women's tennis coach, will be in. April 1st, how about this lineup? John, by the way, and Mike Littlewood.
Yes, how fun is that?
NCAA basketball referee and former BYU baseball coach. Look forward to that on April 1.
Yep, and then I don't know. We got a lot of to be announced, so maybe we don't.
Yeah, we're working on.
We have
lineup.
a pretty good lineup for April 8th and April 18th, but we'll let you know. I'm just gonna say, bring in some folks on that I just watched practice the other day in football practice that you're gonna like having on. Let's just leave it at that.
So we're looking forward to rolling into the end of March and into April. Let's fire up some notes on campus as we wrap this thing up. And how about the moves in football? There have been so many. But let me start you with this one. There was some talk of Zach Wilson going to the 49ers. And then this afternoon, the 49ers signed Josh Dobbs to a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million guaranteed. And so Zach's out. Where's Zach going to go?
It's an interesting question, and I think people want Zach, but they want him for cheap, and so they don't want to give the Jets anything for him. He's going to find a home. I'm just worried that the Jets are going to go, no, we're going to keep him.
Well, pretty soon they're not going to get anything out of him.
Yeah, so and they feel desperately they got to get something for him, which they've got. He'll land someplace, and he's going to be a great story before this is all said and done.
Got to get out of New York.
So
a few other guys on the move.
Sione Takitaki, you remember he had these great seasons with the Browns? He just signed with the Patriots. Yeah. So he'll be with the Patriots.
Does every linebacker at BYU eventually
go to the Patriots?
Harvey's been there. Van Noy's been there.
Right. That's right.
That's great.
And Michael Davis, who really was making a great living with the Chargers, starting and holding down that corner spot, he's with the Washington Commanders now.
He's going to make a better living.
On the East Coast, going west to east.
And Kyrus Tonga today signed with the Cardinals. Yeah. So he goes from the Vikings to the Cardinals. So Jaron Hall loses a former Coug.
And Kyrus has been Bears, Vikings, now Cardinals. Yeah. So
baseball, BYU 8-7, 3-3 in the Big 12. They won their Big 12 home opening series against Houston, 2-1 over the weekend. Crew Robinson a home run, a triple, and a double in the rubber match. How about
that? Yeah.
Easton Jones belted a home run and flashed some Golden Glove stuff at third base.
He did.
They're figuring it out. BYU's at Utah Tech tomorrow night, March 19th, on the BYU radio app with Steve Klauke. Thursday through Saturday at Texas Tech, ESPN Plus, and BYU Radio with Steve. And then the next home game is next Monday, March 25th, Utah Valley at 6 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN Plus and BYU Radio. Now, as you talk about softball, I'm going to check a score.
Okay, BYU softball 16-9 right now, 1-5 in conference. It's because they got swept at number 3 Texas. They're really good. This is a great softball league, by the way. Tonight, BYU's at Utah. You can check on that right now?
I'm checking it right now.
Because they started at 5, so they could be done or close to it. Thursday through Saturday, number 4 Oklahoma State's at BYU. Thursday and Friday, the games are at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Saturday at noon Mountain. And all these games are on ESPN Plus. You'll be on the call Thursday night, right?
Yeah, I'm going to call that one. Oklahoma State, what did we say? Number 4 in the country?
Yep.
I mean, that's where this Big 12, number 1's Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So BYU gets beat at Utah 3-1. Utes came from behind to win that one tonight. Men's volleyball 11-7, 2-4 in the MPSF. This week, they're number 7 in the country. They're at number 8 Pepperdine Friday and Saturday. Next home match is Concordia, March 29th and 30th on BYU TV.
There's no easy matches in the league BYU plays, and that's the best league in college volleyball. So men's golf and women's golf, actually both men's team, they're competing today and tomorrow at the Pauma Valley Invitational in Pauma Valley, California. And then the women's team is in the Fresno State Classic over in the Valley, March 25th through 26th in Fresno, California.
Tennis, BYU women are 12-3. They're 4-2 in the Big 12. They won at Iowa State, lost at Kansas last week. And this week on Saturday, March 23rd, they're at Texas Tech. So life on the road.
Yeah, and we're going to have Holly in with us. And that's one of the surprise teams. It's just that 12-3 start and 4-2 in the league. They're competing, and we're going to talk to her. She got quite an international cast of folks on that team. So that'll be fun to have Holly in studio with us.
The men are doing well, too. They're 11-3. They've got their conference opener against Oklahoma State here at home on Thursday.
Right.
And then number 21, Oklahoma, comes to town on Saturday. So the 2 Oklahoma schools coming in this week.
Yep. And gymnastics, the Big 12 championships are Saturday, March 23rd in Norman, Oklahoma.
It is springtime, and track and field is back at it. They had the Arizona Spring Break Fiesta over the weekend. This week, men's and women's teams are going to send athletes to the Aztec Invitational Thursday in San Diego and the Trojan Invitational Saturday in Los Angeles. It was the indoor stuff earlier. Now they're outside.
Now they're getting outside.
This is where they're really good.
Yeah. Their BYU is stacked in cross country and track and field. So we've had both Ed and Diljit on the show. It seems like we just had Diljit. It's time for to get Ed back and give us a spring track preview, don't you think?
Yeah, or we wait till they're about to go win nationals.
Okay, let's do
bring
that.
him in.
We'll bring him in.
But we'll definitely get him in. On this day, March 18th.
In 1662, on March 18th, the first bus service began in Paris. What?
That's when they had the idea.
Wow.
First bus service in Paris. I don't know what kind of bus it looked like.
Like it had to be pulled by animals.
That's how they did it over there.
That's wild.
1850 on this day, American Express, this little company they put together in Buffalo. And I don't know when Don't Leave Home Without It came along, but that's a pretty good slogan.
Everything you think starts in New York City, but no, this time it was in the great state of New York, but in Buffalo. So American Express in Buffalo. How about 1881? Barnum and Bailey Circus debuts at New York's Madison Square Garden as the greatest show on earth.
1881. 1892, Lord Stanley presents a Silver Challenge Cup for hockey. Hey, why don't you guys play for this? And of course, it becomes the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, Lord Stanley himself. How about 1967? The Beatles song Penny Lane hits number 1 on this day.
That's a good song.
Penny Lane is in my...
It's exactly like that. 1995, on this day, Michael Jordan announces he is ending his 17-month NBA retirement. I remember watching SportsCenter. I remember he put the statement was, I'm back.
I'm back. Yeah.
And then he was back. He came back with a different number, I believe. Wasn't he wearing 45 when he came back?
And then he eventually go back to the
goes over to the Wizards.
Yeah. And it was just crazy. Yeah.
But
we won championships after he came back.
When he came back. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, how about March 18th birthdays? Let's start in 1837. Grover Cleveland, the 24th president of the United States. And then 1970, Queen Latifah, of course.
Adam Levine, 1979 from Maroon 5. I was just reading a note from Eric in Singapore. We've had Panama. And we have had, let's see, who do we usually
we had Panama in the house. We had Singapore in the house. I'm trying to think. From around the country.
Oh, the Philippines were in the house, too.
Tucson's in the house, of course. So
that's great. Deaths on this day, March 18th. How about 1845? Johnny Appleseed, a nurseryman, introduced apple trees to Pennsylvania, Ontario, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. And, of course, we all know the legend of Johnny Appleseed. He died on this day in 1845.
Wow. 2017, Chuck Berry. That's not that long ago.
He lived a long time.
Yeah.
John Clayton, ESPN NFL reporter, died on this day in 2022. They had a great PR commercial with him when he's sitting in his room with his all his ESPN stuff, and as soon as he gets done, he shows it's just like a
That's
cover
right.
thing.
He just takes it off.
And he asks his mom for the meatloaf or something. Yep. Starts playing the drums anyway. He was an outstanding football reporter for ESPN, John Clayton.
Yeah.
Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week comes from the legendary Helen Keller.
Yeah, and it's this: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn.
I love that.
That is such a great quote.
Make the turn. Stadium of Fire, the Jonas Brothers will be at LaVelle Edwards Stadium.
We tried to get you to announce it because you've been known
July 4th.
for 3 weeks and you would not make the announcement, nor would you tell us behind the scenes, which I'm still very disappointed.
Order your tickets at stadiumoffire.com. I would have told you after the show, but we both forgot last week.
I know. My family's pretty pumped about the Jonas Brothers.
It's interesting because we've had a lot of country music over the years, which we love. Journey was awesome last year, sold the place out. And so it can't be Journey every year, and it can't be country every year because people like to mix it up. So here come the Jonas Brothers, who were here a long time ago. And the reaction, it's a different demographic, right? The reaction from Lauren and the kids is, oh, this is awesome. Whereas my reaction is, guys, Journey's here, you're going to love it. And they're like, well, okay. All right.
My kids started naming songs, and I go, oh, well, they have a bunch of stuff that I didn't even know was them.
Yeah.
So there you
I'm
go.
going to have to get up to speed with the Jonas Brothers. But that's July 4th at LaVelle Edwards Stadium again. You can order your tickets at stadiumoffire.com. It's the greatest patriotic show.
Oh, it's so good.
It's just such a good vibe to be there.
only
The jets fly over, and you're just like, okay.
Fireworks are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, they compare well, I don't know. The ones over the Statue of Liberty on the bicentennial were pretty amazing in New York.
Yeah, but after about 10 minutes, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's, and every year, the Stadium of Fire fireworks, I'm just like, how can they possibly keep blowing off more? And yet it just keeps doing.
Keep going.
Finally, you're exhausted, and you're like, okay, this is great.
It's pretty awesome. So, hey, what a great show tonight. Thanks to Greg Wrubell, Mark Durant, and Craig Cusick for being here with us. We had Mark Greg and Craig in studio with us, which was really, really fun. And then Mark Durant joined us on Zoom.
He's gone to it, and he went to his own birthday party afterwards.
He came on with us before his birthday party. How about that?
Yeah. I don't know if I believe that.
Do you think that's not true?
Because his birthday was yesterday. There were plenty of opportunities to sell. I like to think we're part of his birthday celebration.
Okay.
Dave Rose will be with us. His son Garrett next week.
I can't wait.
What a perfect time. We'll be 1 week into the big dance.
Yep. And then Holly Hassler will join us. We just talked about the great success early for this women's tennis team. Holly's going to join us. Talk about that international squad.
And then this Friday night, with all the basketball going on, don't forget, we've got the alumni football game on BYU TV at 6 o'clock
Take a
Mountain
break from
Time.
basketball. BYU plays Thursday and Saturday. Friday night, join us and come watch that alumni football game.
It's going to look different because we're going to be over at that old Provo High School football stadium.
But it's going to be fun.
But it'll be fun, and some of your favorites will be down there.
Hey, Max Hall's going to be slinging it again. What could be better?
If Max is there, we've all got to be there.
Max is going to be there. Brandon Doman's going to be there.
And if you can't get there, get to BYU TV.
Yep, for sure.
A podcast will be up tomorrow. Please share it with your friends. Like us on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch as we continue to build this thing and send it all around the world.
Yep, and we'll see you Friday night on BYU TV.
Thanks, guys.